You rolled out a couple ACC teams there, Bud. Looks like a 3-team league if Vegas is right, because Clemson at 11.5, North Carolina at 10, Miami at 9.5, a 2.5 game drop before you just get to just the old school ACC coastal chaos, just jumble here. Boston College at 7, Pitt at 7, Virginia Tech at 7, Wake Forest at 6.5, Louisville at 6.5, NC State at 6 would feel, and it's juiced to the over, but 6-6 or 7-5, I think NC State fans are disappointed with at the end of the year, even though you're drawing the 3 teams at the top. When I mentioned it's a 3-team league, all of them are on NC State's schedule, as they always have North Carolina and Clemson, and they draw Miami this year. Down at the bottom, if Duke does go 3-9, those are some tough discussions. New athletic director just introduced at Duke University too, Nina King. That will be the first of a couple of big decisions that she's going to have to make in terms of that Duke athletic department. So I think that when she was introduced, it was already part of the narrative. This is going to be the athletic director who hires David Cutcliffe's replacement and Mike Krzyzewski's replacement. We'll see if 3-9 would get that. I think that if it's juiced to the over, if they're 4-8 or 5-7 and look like they are not the friendliest team in all of college football, giving the ball to the opponent, and look a little bit tight, more buttoned up on the offensive side of the ball after making some changes to the offensive staff, I think that I could see Cutcliffe being motivated to continue to keep it going. But a 3-9 where you're just getting, if it's a 3-9 where they're getting run over by most ACC teams, I would not be surprised if those discussions break in the way of taking it in a different direction.
I will say though, if you're the AD at Duke and you're very likely going to be having to replace both Cutcliffe and Coach K, don't you kind of want to do a test run with the football coach first?
Without a doubt. 100%. Yeah. No, that is absolutely a portion of that.
What if he lands Arch Manning? What does that save his job, even regardless of 3-9? Look what's on the horizon. Look what's coming in.
You know what that does? That gives him the right to name his successor. You know, that gives him, if he gets Arch Manning, then he gets to tap his favorite assistant coach to be able to promote them to take over as the head coach after him. Virginia Tech at 7 feels right, Bud. Do you think that brings up the Justin Fuente heat?
Yeah, I think he's gone at 7-5.
I would agree. Yeah,
I think so too.
I mean, there's no recruiting momentum. He has not gotten talent to the Hokies, and just what's the trajectory in Blacksburg if they go 7-5? Playing out the string.
Yeah.
TCU, what about Jeff Collins?
Ooh,
4.5.
See, that's going to depend, I think, on, they're making the transition from option to, more modern football, but that's a process that takes time. So are you in a situation where it's you're demanding, okay, it's time for us to start going to bowl games already, or are you willing to give them a little more time? Because I do think that if you go 4-8, they're kind of man, we're not really seeing a lot of signs, but at the same time, you kind of knew it was going to be an adjustment period going from where you were to what you're trying to get to.
I think too, this is what's gonna, it's funny because we say it takes time. To a football fan base, time is 2 years. It's oh yeah, 2 years, we should see this. The last year was a wash. COVID is just a weird year, right? You lose a lot of development. We knew, I would have said in 3 years for Jeff Collins, realistically, the third year is when you want to see a nice step in improvement. You get to 6-6, or do you get to a bowl game? But because you lost that year, this might be another year where it is a 4-8 or a 5-7. But I think and this is where I think as an athletic director or whoever's making the decision, that you have to have a really good pulse of culture, buy-in, where are the players responding to the coach, to his coaching style? And if they're not, if he's lost the locker room, then you make the tough decision, you move on. But if you still see buy-in, if you still see momentum on the recruiting trail, if you still see positive, signs behind the scenes, that's where you have to go out there and voice that support. That's where I think it gets really tricky for some of these, win totals that are out there.
I agree with you guys. Actually, I wasn't throwing that up as I think he will be gone. I just wanted to see your reactions on it. I mean, if you're going to make this change, you need to have sort of all in buy-in from the admin. Last year was basically a total wipeout with COVID, in my opinion. I thought Danny brought up a great point there. If they're still playing hard, man, this team is going to get some inflated numbers, and we're going to get some good value on them down the stretch because they might be an underdog in every game after September in a row. Have you seen this schedule? This is nuts.
It's just about to bring it up.
They open NIU, Kennesaw State, and then it's at Clemson, UNC, Pitt, at Duke. The at Duke is probably the last game where they're favored, actually. Virginia away, they should be dogs. Hokies at home. They could clip the Hokies if the Hokies have quit on the year. That's certainly possible. Miami, Boston College. That one's kind of a coin flip for me-ish. Notre Dame and Georgia. This is a really tough schedule. If things go the wrong way, they could be like 3-9, 2-10.
Pitt and Virginia Tech are probably your like games where we could see this go one way or the other. I mean, if Vegas is right, Pitt is not the dark horse that we think because they're just jumbled right in there with everybody else at 7 with Boston College.
You have to have Duke.
Virginia Tech.
You have got to win that Duke game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like Georgia Tech could get blown out by Georgia and Clemson. The health of the program will be determined in some of those division games and some of those other conference games. They also have with Clemson as your annual rival. It's a very Tennessee-like problem.